Welcome to Episode 5 in our Accident Theory series. We learned that causation can be established in two ways: legally, by investigating who was responsible for an incident, and scientifically, by identifying the non-human factors that contributed to the event. To demonstrate causality, there must be a clear continuity linking causes to effects. This connection cannot be based solely on correlation. Rather, it must show a logical sequence of events that directly link a cause to its effect. In today's episode, we will look at causality, specifically necessary and sufficient causes. We will look at the difference between causes and contributing factors, as well as causes versus counterfactuals. We will end the episode looking at causes versus reason. Historically, identifying a single root cause was considered sufficient to close an incident investigation. Often, investigators focused on the most direct path from cause to effect, allowing them to conclude the investigation as quickly as possible. However, this approach has evolved, recognizing that multiple root causes may contribute to an incident, each with its own set of contributing factors that must be thoroughly examined. Contributing factors, also referred to as causes, are the links in the sequence of events leading up to an incident. These factors can be classified as either necessary or sufficient in causing an event. Necessary causes are factors that must be present for an event to occur, and sufficient causes are factors that, if present, can independently cause the event. Understanding which category a cause falls into helps determine whether probabilistic or deterministic causation applies. To establish the type of causation in an incident, the first step is to assess whether a contributing factor was essential for the incident to occur, necessary cause, or whether it was powerful enough on its own to cause the incident, sufficient cause. In many cases, a necessary factor alone may not be enough to cause an incident. Conversely, a factor that is typically insufficient under normal conditions could, in severe enough quantity, lead to an incident. A practical example of the difference between necessary and sufficient causes can be seen in the operation of a city bus. Fuel, whether gasoline, diesel, or electricity, is necessary for the bus to move forward. Without it, the bus cannot operate. However, an obstruction, such as the bus colliding with a building, would be a sufficient cause to stop it. While fuel is essential for propulsion, the presence of an obstacle can halt movement regardless of the fuel level. For an incident to occur, both necessary and sufficient causes must be present. If the bus lacked fuel, it would not have moved forward in the first place. Likewise, if there was no building in its path, the bus would not have collided and come to an abrupt stop. In occupational health and safety investigations, many factors leading to an incident are considered necessary, but they must combine in a way that makes the scenario sufficient to cause the incident. In occupational health and safety investigations, many factors leading to an incident are considered necessary, but they must combine in a way that makes the scenario sufficient to cause the incident. If an incident results only from necessary factors, it is classified as probabilistic causation, meaning the incident was possible but not inevitable. However, if an incident results from factors that were not strictly necessary, but were sufficient to bring about the outcome, it is classified as deterministic causation, meaning the incident was unavoidable given those conditions. Understanding the distinction between necessary and sufficient causes allows investigators to determine whether an incident was a likely outcome of existing conditions or an inevitable result of specific contributing factors. Whether smoking is the cause of lung cancer depends on many factors, including whether cell mutation occurs or if the smoker dies due to something else prior to developing cancer symptoms. The key takeaway from the last 5 episodes of the Accident Theory series is that a cause is a condition that produces an effect. However, identifying a cause and linking it to an effect is not always straightforward. In some cases, what appears to be a cause is a contributing factor. Contributing factors are conditions that increase the likelihood of an effect occurring rather than directly causing it. For example, to start a fire, Scientifically referred to as initiating combustion, three essential conditions must be present. There needs to be some sort of fuel, as well as oxygen. There also has to be a sufficient amount of heat. While the ratio of these elements can vary, all three are required to sustain combustion. But does this mean that fuel, heat, and oxygen are the cause of a fire igniting? Both the short and long answer is no. Consider a scenario where a fire extinguisher in an office somehow ignites. Oxygen is necessary for combustion, but because oxygen is present everywhere on Earth, it is considered a contributing factor rather than the direct cause of the fire. However, if a fire were to break out in a sealed laboratory specifically designed to exclude oxygen, then it would be reasonable to conclude that the presence of oxygen played a causal role in the fire. It could even be further speculated that the oxygen was a direct cause of the fire. Determining whether a factor is a cause or a contributing condition depends on the context of inquiry. Simply put, the perspective on causation is shaped by who is asking the questions and who is providing the answers. For example, a peasant experiencing a famine might attribute it to drought, while an external observer might argue that the real cause is the government's failure to maintain food reserves, with the drought being only a contributing condition. This dynamic is often reflected in workplace environments, particularly where tension exists between frontline employees and management. Employees may blame management for maintaining an unsafe work environment, while management may blame employees for performing tasks unsafely. Investigating such environments requires an unbiased approach, free from preconceived notions about causes and contributing factors. Does smoking cause lung cancer, or does simply being born or having lungs cause lung cancer? Common sense says these are contributing factors, but cannot be causal. Do you agree? Share your opinion in this episode's group chat or in the comments section if you are following on social media. A counterfactual can be considered an anti-cause because it is a belief, claim, or hypothesis that contradicts the presented facts. It represents something that could have happened but did not. Understanding counterfactuals is important because they help determine whether a particular factor caused or contributed to an event. When investigating the cause of an incident, counterfactual reasoning, whether conscious or subconscious, is used to assess whether a factor was responsible for the outcome. To apply counterfactual thinking, one must replace the actual sequence of events with a hypothetical scenario that contradicts observed facts. A practical example of a counterfactual can be seen when a person burns their mouth on a scalding hot drink ordered from a cafe. The temperature of the drink is the direct cause of the burn. However, if the person had not attempted to drink it, the injury would not have occurred. While this seems like a logical conclusion in hindsight, the idea of simply not drinking the beverage is counterfactual because the drink should not have been dangerously hot in the first place. Additionally, the person's intent was to consume the drink they ordered. Suggesting of avoiding it entirely is an unrealistic alternative in the given sequence of events. The scientific method for determining whether an event is causal or counterfactual involves analyzing the outcome, labeled O, and all potential causes leading to it. These causes are typically labeled alphabetically. If the outcome has two causes, A and B, and one is removed, does the outcome change? If A is removed but O still occurs due to B, then B is causal and A is counterfactual. If removing A prevents the outcome, then B is counterfactual. In cases where both A and B are required for the outcome, they are jointly causal. When analyzing counterfactuals in an incident investigation, it is crucial to remain objective and avoid bias. It is easy to judge a person's actions based on the hindsight available now, rather than the information available at the time of the incident. Recognizing counterfactuals should not lead to unfair judgments about an individual's decisions, but should instead focus on understanding the conditions that contributed to the event. In everyday life, the words cause and reason are sometimes mistakenly used interchangeably when trying to understand why a sequence of events led to a particular outcome. This confusion arises because most people seek a reason rather than an actual cause. The expression, "we are good people with good intentions, so how could this bad thing have happened?" reflects a common belief that bad things should not happen to good people. A frequent flaw in logic when investigating incidents is the assumption that an unusual event must have an equally unusual cause. If an incident is perceived as an aberration, it becomes easy to search for exceptional factors to explain why it occurred. However, incidents rarely happen due to a singular anomaly. Rather, they are one of several possible outcomes influenced by existing hazards and the safeguards in place at the time. The human tendency to seek a reason for an event can lead to overlooking its actual causes. While an outcome may seem improbable, it is rarely impossible. The reason an outcome occurs is that it could occur, but the actual cause lies in the combination of hazardous factors that persisted within the system of safeguards meant to prevent such an event. Think of a time you damaged some piece of equipment. Was this event the cause of an aberration, or were there existing hazards which led to the outcome? Share your comments in this episode's group chat or in the comment section if you are following on social media. For example, if a factory worker's hand is crushed by a machine, it is less critical to find a reason for why the worker's hand was in harm's way, and more important to determine why the machine was able to operate while the worker's hand was in a hazardous area. Counterfactuals and hindsight can easily be used to assign a reason for an incident, but a thorough investigation is necessary to identify the causal factors. Understanding these causes allows for improvements in safeguards to reduce or eliminate the risk of similar incidents in the future. Historically, one root cause was sufficient to close an investigation, but this way of thinking is insufficient as an outcome can have multiple causes which lead to multiple effects. A contributing factor can either be necessary for causing an incident or sufficient for causing an incident. If a factor is necessary or sufficient determines whether probabilistic or deterministic causation exists. Contributing factors are conditions that influence an effect by increasing the likelihood of the effect occurring. Determining whether a factor is considered as a cause or something that has contributed to it is influenced by context of inquiry. Proper investigation requires an unbiased approach, free of a predefined idea of the causes and contributing factors that lead to an incident. A counterfactual is something that could have occurred but did not. In everyday life, the word cause and reason can sometimes be mistakenly interchanged by an individual trying to uncover why a sequence of events resulted in an outcome. COHSI provides its students with a multiple-choice quiz at the end of each episode, which can be used as practice material for the content that has been covered. A free version of the quiz can be accessed by anyone following our content on social media by using the QR code shown on the screen. If you are a COHSI student, please complete the discussion board topics found throughout this unit, as well as the episode quiz. Both of these tasks can be found under their appropriate tabs in your learning portal. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your course instructor. Thank you for watching and have a safe day.